Good afternoon, John, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us at Jeppe Boats and Blades.
Thanks very much, Greg, and thanks for the invite.
It's good to have you with us. So, first question is, why rowing? What drew you to the sport in the first place?
Well, Greg, it's a bit of a funny story, and if you don't mind, I'm going to tell it. When I was about probably 10 years old, a primary school boy, I'd never even really heard of rowing as a sport. But I was always a bunny hugger, and I always loved animals. And I grew up in a house full of stray pets. And the one day, this Maltese poodle arrived in our garden. And of course, I immediately took a shine to this very scruffy-looking little dog, and it lived with us for about a week. And I was thrilled because I had a new pet and a new friend to go and play in the garden with. And then one day, this teenager who was probably 16 or 17 at the time arrived in the garden and said, "I believe that's my dog," which I was horrified about. And he promptly took the dog back home with him down to Derby Road. I was living in Highland Road in Kensington in those days. But the dog just kept coming back. And so the owner would come and fetch him. And the owner turned out to be Chris Clark, who was the stroke of the Jeppe 1988, and I think captain of the Jeppe 1981 crew, which ended up winning SA Champs that year. So through this little Maltese poodle, the two families actually became quite friendly, and we learned a little bit about rowing. And my dad took us to Oarsman that year to go and watch the first 8 race. And I was absolutely blown away. I'd never seen anything quite as exciting as this. The Jeppe crew did win, and I mean, if I'd never seen anything more about it after that, I was already hooked on the sport. They then a week later won SA Champs, and Greg, you're old enough to remember that when you made the SABC news in those days, it was a huge thing. And for some reason, they featured the Jeppe crew on the SABC sports news that night after their SA Champs won, and I was absolutely hero worshipping these guys. And I was also at school with Jonathan Short, whose brother Greg Short was also in that 1981 crew. And I was in standard 3, and I had 2 long years to wait before I could go and row at Jeppe, and I actually just could not wait. I was so over cricket and all the other sports. So I was absolutely thrilled when I got a chance to get to the 1983 end of my standard 5 or grade 7 year. I went off to the rowing camp, and I was hooked ever since then. Just a little end to that story was that in that season, the captain of the crew, of the first aid crew, when I was in standard 6, was a guy by the name of John Oliver. And through rowing, he met my sister, my older sister Heather. And 31 years, well, it's probably 36 years that they've been together, but they've been married for 31 years now, with 3 boys in their 20s. And so that little poodle really did have quite a story to tell in our family. And so did Jeppe rowing, actually.
Yeah. Excellent. So, John, how's your time as a Jeppe Oarsman impacted the rest of your life?
Greg, I obviously had a bit of time to think about that question, and I think the best way to explain it is when I was on that rowing camp at the end of standard 5, I was for some reason thrown into the deep end with a crew that was a year older than me, and there was a guy in that crew, Tony Wenzel, who was a great guy, and Chris Midlane, I'm sure will remember him. He was a great character of that year, and unfortunately was killed in a car accident before the end of his schooling career. But he sat me down and he said, "Look, Ali Francis has for some reason thrown you in the deep end, and you're going to be rowing with us in the Viv Richards." It was probably the heaviest 8 you've ever. I think it took about 16 of us little boys to carry this thing down to the water in the morning. But he said to me, "We're going to race against the under 15 crew, David Shapcott's crew. We're going to race against the second 8, and we're going to race against the first 8 over 3,600 meters." And they're going to set us off 25 seconds ahead of the under 15 A8, and we're going to be 35 seconds ahead of the second 8 and 45 seconds. I can't remember the times, but basically they set us off. And Tony said, "You must just understand something, John. This is not like anything you've ever experienced before. You're going to be 1,000 meters into the race. Your lungs are going to be burning, and your legs are going to be tired, and you're going to want to stop. That wooden oar is going to start feeling very heavy in your hands, and it's going to be, and you're going to see those crews coming towards you, and you're going to think to yourself, I don't think I can carry on anymore. And you're going to get to 2,000 meters, and that pain wave is going to hit you. It's going to just keep coming at you like a wave. Those were his exact words, coming at you like a wave, and you've got to push through that pain barrier. And if you don't push through that pain barrier, we're going to know that you didn't push through the pain barrier. The rest of your crew will feel it." And sure enough, it's exactly what happened. You know, I think anyone who's ever rowed in a rowing boat knows exactly what I'm talking about. You don't pace yourself to finish the race and then feel tired. You're tired halfway through the race. And that pain barrier is something that you just actually have to push through. And you have to learn that you can't let your crew down and you can't let yourself down. And I think there's a huge lesson in that. There's a huge bond that's formed between the guys that are experiencing that together. And I think that's a lesson that you take into your adult life, because you know, there's a lot of times in your life when you have to just push through. You have to just fuss face, and you have to just go beyond. And some of the greatest moments of your life are always experienced beyond the pain barrier. So outside of your comfort zone. So I think that's a lesson that probably every oarsman will have experienced or will relate to. So I thank Tony Wenzel for sitting me down that evening after Elliot Francis had for some reason put me into this crew where the guys were all bigger and stronger than me, and warned me about the pain barrier that I was about to experience for the first time.
Excellent. I bet you didn't sleep too well that night either. So, so John, you're very familiar with the JP Boats and Blades cause, and thank you for your generous contributions to date, and indeed your continued support for JP Rowing over the years. So my question is, what are your thoughts on the initiative, and how do you believe we can spread the word and get other ex-oarsmen, other JP guys involved, and I suppose just the wider audience as well? How can we reach out to them?
Well, Greg, I think first of all, I was actually quite shocked and surprised to find that JP doesn't have its own 8. I think I was very fortunate to be involved with JP Rowing when we did have 4 8s. The Viv Richards was on its way out, admittedly, but the Ellicat, which the 1981 crew, I think, won in, we had, I think it was called the Sabre, and then we had the first 8 boat, which was the Rapier. And for me to get an email from Chris Midlane to say, look, the club doesn't have an 8 and we're trying to raise money was actually quite a surprise. So congratulations to you guys for all the hard work that you've put in, first of all. I think, if I'm honest, I think rowing always battles to attract corporate interest. I think it is a sport that you almost have to be involved in to really understand. The old boys have to get together, and they have to rally around and recognize the hugely significant role that rowing has played in our, never mind JP, but that rowing itself has played in all of our lives.
So John, from your time as a JP oarsman, what significant memory do you recall with great fondness?
Greg, I was very lucky, like I said, to be involved at JP when I wouldn't say it was at its absolute peak, but it's certainly very strong years in JP rowing with the sort of mid to late 80s and into the 90s. I finished in 1988. I had a very strong group of guys that I was lucky to be part of, and we were a very good crew. And in fact, this is not an exaggeration, the 10 of us that were involved in our first 8 in my matric year are still on daily WhatsApp contact with each other 33 years later, or 32 years later now. And that just speaks of the sort of bond that we had as a crew. And like I said, those long, hard hours when you're sweating it out together, it does form quite a bond. I actually put the question to the group. I said, look, guys, this is the question. You know, give me some anecdotal stories. And I think what came back quite strongly wasn't, it didn't revolve around any one specific moment. It was more a feeling. It was more a feeling of belonging and a sense of family that you got from being part of something that we felt was quite special. And I think it was quite special. And I think if I was to speak personally, I'd probably say that the December rowing camps were probably the absolute highlight of my rowing. And I'm talking about rowing beyond my Jeppe time. That thing that, you know, I wasn't a boarder, so maybe it impacted on me even more than it would have if I was in a boarding hospital. But to have 80, 90, 100 guys all sleeping in the pavilion at once, you know, the mothers and the parents that were involved, like the Short family and the Casavillan family, that were hugely influential and hugely helpful to all of us. Catering for that number of boys for that amount of time. I mean, those rowing camps were a huge undertaking. When I look at it now as an adult, I think we just took it for granted, but the amount of work that went into it. And then, of course, you had Ellie Francis, who was almost like the father figure of the family. And those sort of late evenings after a day slogging away on the water, and Ellie sitting there with his pipe and his couple of beers, recanting some stories to the other coaches and parents and cackling. He had a very, very hearty chuckle, which was very distinctive. And you kind of drifting off to sleep. You know, those are memories that you take with you forever. And I think those are also special times as a group of people that no matter how divergent your lives are post school, you know, those are shared. I can only say emotions. You know, those are shared emotions and times that you never really shake or lose. I would say those are probably the great memories. But I think also the fact that rowing is a sport where you are building towards. It's a little bit like a rugby World Cup. You're building towards SA Champs the whole season, and that excitement that builds as you're getting closer and closer to champs, and the whole family pulling together for that one event where you really have got now 6 months worth of work that you've got to put into practice. That's also obviously a hugely exciting and fond memory for me and for I would say most of the guys that I would have rowed with. But Greg, if I could just say, you know, the rowing community goes beyond the school. I was lucky enough to carry on rowing. I rowed with Wits. I won the boat race with Wits the year after school. And I actually was very fortunate enough to get into the national squad and row at Lucerne. We were the first South African crew welcomed back onto Lucerne. We got a standing ovation just for paddling out onto the water. We didn't know what was going on because they'd announced it in German. So suddenly everybody was standing on the bank clapping. We were a bit confused. And I even went to Montreal to the World Championships. But I can honestly say that in the 5 or 6 years of post-school rowing, nothing ever really matched those years at Jeppe and that bond that we formed as a crew going through all those years together. So yeah, I've got very special memories of Jeppe, and I'm very happy to continue to contribute. And hopefully the boys that are there now are experiencing that same sort of camaraderie and feeling sense of family.
Absolutely. Well, it's them pulling together and getting the results that they did without a boat that started with Jeppe Boats and Blades. That's the bottom line. You know, we were inspired by their efforts, and that's it. Yeah. So yeah. Well, John, thank you so much for your time. It's been fantastic to just speak with you again, and we really appreciate the time that you've taken to speak to us.
Yeah, that's a pleasure, Greg. And like I said, once again to all of you, well done for getting this initiative off the ground, and good luck with everything going forward. Thanks,
John. And for everybody else out there, please feel free to go check out our website. That's www.jeppeboatsandblades.co.za. And until we connect again, keep pulling for gold. Thank you very much.